Welcome to the 2022 Two Autumns reading. This is kind of HPNC's crown jewel, and it's our 32nd reading. Every year we have 4 special guest poets read for us, and it's always accompanied with a physical anthology of the four readers. And like every year, we have the latest one called the View Arcade. I know you probably can't see this very well, but it was edited by Nathanael Tico, and Jeff Doleman did the production. He did a beautiful job. We're very pleased with it. And afterwards, when we unmute, after the 4 readers have read their work, you can all talk with them if you want to know about the production and what they went through on producing the book. This is probably the longest ongoing in English haiku reading that I know of. We often say outside of Japan, but the reality is, I don't think in Japan they do haiku readings like we do here in the States. So it's really been going on for a long time. So let me introduce Nathanael Tico to you. He's going to be on editing the anthology. He's also today's MC, and he'll introduce all the poets and tell you about them. So let me tell you about Nathanael. Nathanael Tico is a native San Franciscan. He was introduced to haiku at an early age by his father, the well-known haiku poet, Tom Tico. Nate's early haiku efforts began in the 1990s, and he had his first few haiku published in Frog Pond in 2003. In 2020, after a long break, he began writing and submitting regularly. His recent work can be found in journals such as Frog Pond, Modern Haiku, Heron's Nest, Presence, Edgegrove, Bottle Rockets, Ekisu Quarterly, Mariposa, Kingfisher, Tensu Doro, Seahorses, and elsewhere. In his spare time, he is a talent agent of over 25 years experience and an educator in the voiceover field. Here's Nate.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you very much. And thank you all of you for being here today on Zoom. It's a pleasure to gather like this, to hear the work of great poets, for lack of a better way of putting it. And I'm very excited for what we're about to be shared. So this is something that I've been looking forward to for a long time. It's a tremendous group of poets, and we are going to do the readings in the order of the chapbook, which is a patented, unique system called alphabetical by last name. So it's rare that it's done that way, but I decided to just, reject the norm and just kind of follow that unique path. So we're going to start with Jim today, and I will share a little bit about Jim. Jim Chessing has been writing haiku since his senior year in high school, when he discovered a book of translations on a math teacher's desk. In 1988, he was one of 12 top selections in the Japan Airlines English language haiku contest. And in 2003, he took first prize in the inaugural Robert Speece Memorial Haiku Contest. He began writing Tanka in 2005, and in 2010, he won first prize in the Tanka Society of America International Tanka Contest. His poems have appeared in leading print and online journals. One of the original members of the Haiku Poets of Northern California in 1989. He was inactive for nearly 3 decades until resurfacing in the pandemic year 2020. At present, he is the organization's bookseller. Jim also edited the 2022 Tanka Society of America Members Anthology. A semi-retired clinical psychologist, he lives with his wife in San Ramon, California. When not working, Jim can be found chasing inspiration in the rolling hills and oak woodlands of the Diablo Range east of San Francisco. And without further ado, here is Jim Chessing.
Thanks, Nate, for your kind introduction and for editing the Two Autumns anthology, and to Jeff for putting it all together. Thanks to the officers for inviting me to read today alongside such an accomplished group of poets. And thanks to all the poets who are listening. I'll read two groups each of haiku and tanka with a concluding haiku. I'll read each poem once. There will be an audience participation section during which the audience will be invited to guess the answer to a riddle for a prize. A tanka I tried to write revealed its true nature to be that of a riddle, and I've abandoned all hopes of forcing it to be something it doesn't want to be. When we get there, I'll tell you what the prizes are and how to play. And one more thing, I will be providing you the answer in one of the preceding haiku. Haiku. It begins, a galaxy of dust motes in a projector's beam. Opening the door to an unexpected knock, the fragrance of plum. This one is from 1990. Vince Trippi got a kick out of it. Fading narcissus, the mockingbird's furious preening. Morning dove, my elderly neighbor stills the sound of her hoeing. Old muscles working the soil, poppies close. Mulch, the stranger in me. Crabapple leaning over the fence, the curmudgeon. Jupiter's beard, the snick her pruner used to make. Every limb feels weighed down. Autumn willow. Last night's snow, the flatness of the bedspread where his leg was. Where lost words go, rummaging in the shed for the spare key. Winter solitude, the lima beans soaking in half moonlight. In the small hours, the fragment of a tune I used to know. Tonka. The comings and goings of bees among the lavender. I wait, and you appear. The morning glory embraces all that it touches. Who could have known the moment I first saw you? I mean, really saw you. Your face in the telling. How many clouds can the sky hold and not rain? You drive yourself in your father's memory, that brave little girl who had a miracle for everyone but him. I hold your eyes, red from the memories tears can't wash away. I will hold your sorrow. I will keep it close to mine. You be the poppies and I'll be the lupin. Together we'll race up the hillside and laughing, vanish in the sun. Running, there's no outrunning the rain. Every love song is about you. When you're not here, I drift through the day like a ghost. There are no hard edges. Laughter settles like dust. Easy as a cloud diving under the edge of a rain puddle. Where I stop, you begin. Haiku. First orange. The taste of rain in the one just picked. Alternating thumbs. The bit of string in a sparrow's beak. Birds on a wire, the space between parentheses. Orange blossoms, no problem that can't wait until tomorrow. Morning glory, the ellipsis in every seed pod. Rosemary blossoms, how twilight sneaks up on the perfect day. Trying to get a handle on things, the knob of a fig. Deep in the mountains, a young man in the morning, an old one at night. This one is from 1972, one of my earliest publications. Over the valley, this morning's rain clouds, still there. All the light the treetops gather, giant wake robin. Cattail fluff, the trout on the stringer gives a lazy tail flip. First kiss, freeing the hook from a coot's wing. Tonka. The day moon leans to its weaker side. Absent a hinge, the garden gate hangs open. A trim country lane beside a post and wire fence. The air alive with song. I follow my feet into the gray-orange mist. A chance turn has led to this sloping expanse of twilit heather. I feel so happy, yet this coming apart. The lemon tree, long untended, lush with fruit, spills over the fence and juts into the sky. To be half as mad as that. Where does it come from? This rhapsody of birdsong. Leafless oaks overlook their reflection in the still morning water. A touch, an excitation, taste and smell. A bug on the water or a carp splashing in the sun. So this is the aforementioned audience participation section. The person who guesses the correct answer to the riddle may select from one of the following prizes. Let me show you. A Turtle's Ears by Robert Speece. This is about 51 years old. Robert Pinsky, A Brief Guide to Poetry. This is the poet laureate from 1998, plus or minus, who wrote a book on the structure of the line in poetry. The Right Touch of Sun, the TSA member anthology from 2017. And 2 copies of Hummingbird, the magazine of the short poem, which publishes short modern poetry as well as haiku and tanka. So in order to play, I'll read the poem again, and when I finish, those who want to guess, unmute yourselves and just call out your answer. Don't click the hand raising function. Just call out the answer and we'll match the voice to your face. So remember, I've given you the answer already. So let me read it. And I think let me read it again. A touch, an excitation, taste and smell, a bug on the water, or a carp splashing in the sun. So please unmute yourselves and just call out an answer. Anyone who wants to play guess. Any takers?
Jim, I'm not sure what the question is.
To guess the answer, what am I talking about in the poem?
Fishing?
Say again, Nate?
Fishing?
No, good guess. Let me give you a clue.
Jim, can you read the poem again? Your voice is a bit muted.
Okay. Let me give you the clue. It's an interpersonal behavior common when greeting and parting, as well as in other interpersonal activities. And the poem, a touch, an excitation, taste and smell, a bug on the water, or a carp splashing in the sun.
A handshake?
No, but you're on the right track.
A kiss.
A kiss.
Yes, yes. What helped you to get it, Mary?
Just the mouth and the scent.
Okay, so do you know what prize you want?
Space.
Then will you please send me an email afterwards with your address, and I will mail it to you tomorrow. It's a signed copy of Speece's book.
Thank you so
Very
much.
cool. Very cool.
Thank you all for playing. I really enjoy doing that, and I'm glad we have a winner.
Nathaniel, what was your first guess?
I said hug. No, I said fishing. Fishing.
Fishing. Okay, I
Yeah.
thought you said kissing.
But someone else guessed hug, and that was my other guess too, but
Yeah.
no. So,
So,
all right. Well, that was fun and also a terrific reading, Jim.
well, I'm not done yet, please. Let me.
Oh,
remind
sorry.
everyone.
Sorry. That's what I get.
Yeah.
Rushing you off the stage.
We got too excited here. So a few more. Keeping with the lake theme. Where the lake current crosses the midday sun, the quiet fire that sparkles in the wind. How you hold me with your eyes. The bits of sky between the tangled branches of the leafless oak. That quiet space inside where the word finds its voice. The fine finger of a skeletal oak jabs the sky, gliding on a thermal, all that I cannot touch. I brought them back from the mountain, the sorrow of a plundered egg, and the majesty of wings. A tree-lined side street glows in the warmth of the autumn sun. It takes more than a W to make emptiness whole. He guides the canoe to the middle of the lake, the part-time poet and pretend fisherman, to wait for a shooting star. And concluding, the night sky, there are more poems than time to read them. Thank you.
All right. Jim, that was excellent. And thank you for the audience participation aspect as well. It was a nice addition there for sure. I will get over my not winning. Okay. You know, it's not what this is about. All right. Thank you, Jim. And we are going to be moving on to Kristen Lindquist. I will wait for Susan to maybe switch the view to Kristen, right? Sue, are you able to, there we go. Terrific. How you doing, Kristen?
Hi.
All right, thank you for reading for us. Kristen Lindquist received her MFA in poetry from the University of Oregon. She has published 2 collections of non-haiku poetry, one of which was a finalist for a Maine Literary Award. Her haiku chapbook, It Always Comes Back, was a winner of the 2020 Snapshot Press eChapbook Award. Lindquist was also a featured poet in New Resonance 12 from 2021. She is currently a book reviewer for Frog Pond and the coordinator for the Haiku Foundation's Touchstone Awards for Haibun. Her daily haiku blog, Book of Days, can be found at www.kristenlindquist.com/blog. An avid birder, she lives on the coast of Maine. And without further ado, here is Kristen.
Thank you so much, Nate. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, thank you. So thank you so much, Nate, for doing the beautiful anthology. And thank you to HPNC for inviting me to do this reading. It's really an honor, and I felt a little intimidated when I was invited because I'm you know, among such masters of the craft. So hoping I hold my own here, but I am coming to you from the other coast. I am birding in on Monhegan Island, about 10 miles off the coast of Maine right now. It's fall migration. And so I thought, since this is the 2 autumns reading, I thought I would also sort of go along with the theme of 2 coasts. So I'm coming to you on the West Coast. I know many of you are on the West Coast. I'm coming to you from the East Coast. And so I'm going to give you a little different sections, sort of a Maine themed thing. And each of the sections is going to be capped with the haibun. So the first section, appropriately, because it's we're in a drought here also, but just when I came in to do this, it started to rain. So we're getting some weather here too. Maine weather. North wind. Porcupine tooth marks scar a sapling. Mud season. Crows here and there up to something. March wind. The blue tarp flaps loose on the woodpile. Afternoon fog. The red boathouse slowly fading. Rain turning to snow. I linger in the summer of the produce aisle. Spitting snow. The start of another long Russian novel. Cold to the bone, the imprint in snow of a crow's wingtips. all-night storm, the pulse of hard rock from the plow truck's cab. Winter deepens. A broken branch balances on a power line. Fresh snow, the path I'm on, not made by humans. Morning sun, he pauses shoveling to talk to a crow. And this is a haibun called Succession. Morning in an old spruce forest. Fallen trees and patterns of light crisscross the mossy floor. Headed to the river, we weave ourselves carefully over and under tilted trunks through tangles of branches, trying not to get hung up or impaled. Tiny star flowers shine where openings in the canopy let in some light. From above, the high-pitched songs of invisible warblers. Here and there, we come up against dark walls of upended tree roots clutching rocks. Long humps of bright green moss reveal the ghosts of decaying logs. We follow when we can the paths deer have made through ferns and underbrush, finding in a space between two fallen trees where a deer bedded down, maybe last night. Spring flow, a nymph tied with grouse feathers, drifts in an eddy. This next section is called Main Landscape. The last cord of wood, rising as smoke, sap moon. Bracken unfurling along the riverbank, other forms of prayer. Earth Day, leaving the river alone with its thoughts. Trying to connect with a higher power, old growth pines. Working harbor, the tide's slow progress up the wharf ladder. Morning heat, more blueberries in my bowl than cereal. Trailside raspberries, we trade stories about bears. Sun in Leo, a field of goldenrod hides the fawn's bones. Back road, a bullet hole guts a deer crossing sign. Showing you how to find the North Star, cracks in lake ice. Winter River, a long conversation behind a closed door. Late winter, a fat seal basks on an empty dock. And the haibun is called Bog Haunter, which, if you don't know, is a kind of dragonfly. Bog Haunter. When you explore a peat bog, you should expect to get wet and dirty. To really see what lives there, you lie belly down on sodden mats of peat. At ground level, low-growing fruit, cranberries, cloudberries, crowberries, and charismatic flowers, calypso orchids, grass pinks. Bog soils are nutrient poor, so carnivorous plants, pitcher plants and sundews, have evolved to supplement their diets by trapping insects. The ways we nourish ourselves, black flies. In a few coastal peat bogs in down east Maine, you can find a rare butterfly, the crowberry blue. When the crowberry blue perches, it typically folds its wings together, so you only see the gray spotted undersides. But when this tiny butterfly flies, you get a glimpse of the upper wings, a revelation of pure summer sky blue. doe eyes, the ways we make ourselves attractive. All right, this section is island life. And most of these were written about the island I'm on now. As I said, Monhegan Island, about 10 miles from the mainland, where I come each spring and fall for the bird migrations. Island sunrise, a light already on in someone's kitchen. Shore trail, walking into the surf's roar. Afternoon rain, porpoises slipping past the jetty. Island weather, intermittent showers of spruce needles. Loose strands of rockweed, a small boy splashes into his father's arms. Island farm, the irregular foghorn of goats. Departing ferry, tossed flowers drift back to shore. Autumn twilight, the lighthouse beacon turns on the dark. Must everything die? Question marks alight on fallen apples. New moon, a harpooned tuna hangs from the stern. Island garden, tangled heaps of seaweed mark the fallow rows. And this hibona is called Salt Air. A friend of mine keeps a herd of goats on a small island off a slightly larger island way off the coast of Maine. From across the harbor, you can often see the goats picking their way one after another along trails they've worn in the thin soil. Other times, they're out of sight for days, the fog amplifying their bleats. Following seas, the toll of a bell buoy grows louder. My friend was off island for several days and returned to utter chaos. The goats had broken into her house and trashed it. The animals ate all the grain as well as anything else they could find that was remotely edible and despoiled every surface, including her bed. Days later, when I ask how the cleanup is going, she says that even with all the windows open, everything in the house still smells like goat. Each lobster boat trailed by a cloud of gulls, mouths to feed. And my background image here, as you can see, is a trail on going through the woods of Monhegan Island. So you're kind of there too right now. This last section is East Coast birds. As I said, I and many others come to Monhegan for the bird migration each spring and fall. The island is what's called a migrant trap because it's the only spot of land for miles around for birds migrating over the open ocean. But even when I'm not on the island, birds are, as you may have noticed, if you read my poems at all, they're one of my favorite subjects. Sea breeze. Last year's cattails bend beneath the blackbird. An oriole curls around apple buds, high noon. Hemlock grove, waiting downstream for the tanager's song. Summer heat, sitting perfectly still for the hummingbird. Cardinal song at dusk. None of us wants to die. Heat lightning. A pair of nighthawks flits over the hayfields. A well-worn guide to hawks in flight. Stacked clouds. frost on marsh grasses. A harrier glides past a no hunting sign. Snow on the river, feeding buffleheads flicker on and off. All the eiders dive at once, the pulse of the surf. Brightening sky, a chickadee lands closer to my open palm. And this haiku in the last piece here I'm going to read is called Nocturne. The whippoorwill's calls before dawn were so sharp and clear through the walls of the rented farmhouse on the green ridge. I felt for an instant as if I were inside a vivid dream, or inside the house my grandmother built out of hay bales in the big field, and I'd finally had the courage to stay there all night with only a square of stars over my head. In daylight, how ordinary. Fireflies. Thank you.
Kristen, thank you so much. That was wonderful. Just wonderful. Really transporting. Beautiful. And it made me curious about Monhegan. You know, I'm like, what kind of hotels or lodging is available there? What's the deal? So I'll circle back on that, you know.
I'll fill you in.
Okay. My wife and I are kind of planning like a, you know, New Englandy sort of thing.
Oh, definitely get in touch. I'll tell you everything you need to know.
Sounds good. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, so now we are just going to take a little 5-minute break, people to refresh, and I think we'll go back to the group view here, and then we'll pick back up with Scott and finish up with Julie. Thanks again, Kristen. And your website address was added in the chat for anybody that does want to explore her blog. Thank you very much. All right, and we are back. Wonderful reading so far, and we've got 2 more to go. Up next is Scott Mason. And Scott Mason began writing haiku at the turn of the millennium. In 2017, he self-published The Wonder Code, Discover the Way of Haiku and See the World with New Eyes. The Wonder Code earned a Kirkus Star from Kirkus Reviews, a Touchstone Distinguished Books Award from the Haiku Foundation, and a Merit Book Award, Best Prose, from the Haiku Society of America. He also conceived and edited Gratitude in the Time of COVID-19, the Haiku Hakameron, 2019, which received a Merit Book Award as well for Best Anthology from HSA. A former editor with the Heron's Nest from 2011 to 2021, Scott now serves on the board of the Haiku Foundation as Director of Strategy. His individual poems have received the top award in more than 24 competitions. And without further ado, here is Scott Mason.
Thank you, Nate. And thanks everybody for joining in. As I was preparing for this, and sifting through my poems, I was reminded of a line from the author's preface to Peggy Lyle's wonderful book, To Hear the Rain, where she said that she characterized her poems as pieces of the story of her life. And I'm not sure if she set out to have her haiku be that. I certainly did not. And quite honestly, I'm usually fairly put off by what's called confessional poetry, but you write enough and what you write tends to reveal something about you. So I decided to go with that. I noticed some themes in my work. And so I'd like to share 4 of those with you. They're sort of chronological. When I spent the first 2 decades of my life in a town called Bayshore on Long Island here in New York State. And so as you could imagine from those names, I never was far from the water, and that's just fine with me because I love the water. And I try to visit as often as possible. So let me begin with some poems that are mainly beach related. I usually go with people, although most of these seem to be fairly solitary. And I think a beach is a wonderful locale to get in touch with your inner Sabi. So I think you'll see that in a number of these pieces. Two clumps of seaweed fringing the beach. One takes wing. Shifting wind, every beach grass tuft, a compass. This was actually, my wife and I were in Martha's Vineyard a couple of summers ago at the beginning of the pandemic. And this was, the first line was triggered by a sign that we saw. Shark and jellyfish warnings. We take our chances with the sun. Near sunbathers, driftwood, nearly bleached. Wave function, the half-life of sandpiper tracks. Longest day, bait fish in a bucket, dance in the sun. Eroded beach, sand dollars the size of quarters. Flipped horseshoe crab, seagulls probing prehistory. Ebb tide, a clamshell nestled in seagull tracks. Beach musing number 8. I've never slept standing on one leg. Empty shell, the wind intones my sins of omission. Her prognosis, sea foam wobbles in the wind. Last day of summer, something indecipherable in the sand. This one was for my mother. She adored the water, passed that on to me. Wind carved sand, I crumble a bayberry leaf to bring her back. Beach at sunset, a feather in foam in a footprint. I observed all those things separately, but this was a bit of a game for me. I was wondering if I could create a haiku that would combine all 4 of the Aristotelian elements, you know, water, air, fire, earth. Beach at sunset, a feather in foam in a footprint. And the last one in this set, starry night, the lifeguard stand tilted back. A second theme sort of picks up on something in college, I became enamored of art. And in fact, I majored in art, and it's been an abiding interest in my life. If any of you saw the Haiku North America presentation I did on the phenomenon of Ma in Western art, you'll know that I have this passion. Just a half dozen here. Sudden cloudburst. Mona Lisa in chalk turns expressionist. Writing a check for the lithograph of Escher's hands. The sea lettuce on my face mask, a late Matisse. Say what you will of Magritte's famous pipe painting, this is no haiku. Conceptual art, the gallery filled with tilted heads. museum fatigue. The wounded Amazon hangs her marble head. There's another haiku in this vein that you'll see in the upcoming Mariposa, but I don't want to steal Carolyn's thunder. So I think most of you subscribe or get that, so keep an eye out. In the third part, in the last, well, 40 years or so, I've been fortunate enough to, and my wife and I, to travel a great deal. We've actually visited 6 continents, but we've particularly focused on one country. It's a passion for both of us. It's Italy. In fact, my wife, this is a 15-second plug. My wife is something of the Italian cultural expert. This is her book, La Dolce Vita University, an unexpected guide to unconventional guide to Italian culture from A to Z. She's got a great website. It's ladolcevitau.com. And she also does a marvelous photo blog called Postcards from the Boot. So anyway, together we've visited, I think, just about every region of Italy, and either on bicycle or on foot or city tourism. So several. Amalfi sunrise, a cluster of lemons free of the bird netting. If you've ever been to Milan, you'll know that the Duomo there is just populated with ecclesiastical sculptures, so that this responds to that. Cathedral facade, fresh snow coats the desert father. We'll head over to the Adriatic here. In the stony gaze of St. Mark's lion, a basking tabby. Piazza San Marco, pigeons transfigure to pixels. So one-liner here. With one stroke, the gondolier liquefies brick. Venetian Canal, lifting fog reveals another mask shop. This one's set in Puglia, which is the heel of the boot. Carl and I were cycling around there 3 or 4 years ago. Small town piazza, the tower clock's minute hand launches a pigeon. You'll notice a theme here. This is in the Eternal City. Old City Bridge, pigeons on wings of stone angels. It only took a €2 coin. Dante returns to Florence. Another small miracle here. Fresco chapel. I insert a euro, and then there is light. This one I wrote in Fiesole, which is a town overlooking Florence. Al fresco, the sommelier decants a red sunset. And the last in this set, no escaping this moonlight, Pompeii. And my fourth and last, well, I hope it's not my last passion, but my current one for the last, this has been my literary playpen for the last 20 years, is haiku. It's why we're all here. And part of the play that I enjoy with haiku is, as you may have discerned up to this point, is sound play. And a particular favorite quote of mine, which I've used in other contexts, is the Alexander Pope line that goes, the sound must seem the echo to the sense. And so I'm hoping the next several are in accord with that. Tight connection, duffel bags bumping up the escalator. Train track clatter, the conductor's punches, contrapuntal. Antique harvester, gear teeth clenching brambles. Hunting lodge, the soup stock packs a kick. This was inspired by a terrifying hike I had out in Colorado, place called Electric Peak, about the size of rosary beads, slopeside scree. Insomnia, the oscillating fan, still so still. Big box store at closing. A forklift begins to pirouette. This may be pushing the sound thing a little bit too far, but I'll share it. Alfalfa field, puffs of wind, fluffing fricatives. That's 9 F's in 7 words. I'd like to wrap this up with, before one last poem, with a stream of one-liners. I've become fascinated with a monoku, I guess they're called. I love the compactness in an already compact form. So I'll try to go through these pretty quickly. Swallowtail, how about takeout? It's just a suggestion, Day Moon. Heat wave, the shade of a glacial erratic. Plantation oak, the reach of its shadow. This was written on the last day of Carl and I walked across England in June of 2016. So this was on the last day. Endless heather, first scent of the sea. Starlight harbored in shells washed ashore. Onshore breeze rippling through dune grass, a fox. Sun-fringed cattails conducting the wind. Bach fugue in A minor, our fingers entwined. Bedtime spooning, the screech of raccoons. Blur of the ceiling fan blades making love. The doe up on her hind legs blossoms. My pinched nerve flowering amaryllis. Another birthday, I blow out the pyre. Cumulonimbus, who's next? This one's I guess a honkadora. It's an homage to, well, you'll probably figure, but it's to Marlene Mountain. A pig and the square root of -1, spring rain. A sliced open sesame bagel, first light. I've always wanted to put open sesame in a haiku, so this one scratched that itch. A sliced open sesame bagel, first light. And this next one, imagine the first, if you were reading it, the first 3 lines italicized, like a snippet of conversation. Nothing lasts, dear, her clear plastic cup. And this is a I call this a phonic palindrome because the vowel sounds are the same backwards and frontwards. So nothing lasts dear her clear plastic cup. So I challenge everyone listening to this to write a phonic palindrome. I expect to see many in the journals in coming months. Lost in the woods, a stone wall. Northern flicker encrypting a birch. And the last in this series, Land's End at sunset, it's come to this. And for my last poem, I'd like to dedicate this to Haiku Poets of Northern California. And thank you so much for hosting me and my distinguished fellow poets. And this is something of an homage as well to this very special tradition that you have now in its 32nd year. My window, my mirror, 2 autumns. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Scott. That was very enjoyable, very fun and entertaining as well.
Thank you.
I love the whole nice blend, nice mix, and really enjoyable stuff.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And phonic palindrome challenge accepted. All right. So I might have to email you to have you explain it to me one more time, but then the challenge will really be accepted.
Okay.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much. And that brings us to our last reader of the day. We will, and then we will have time to visit, I think, afterwards as well, or if people want to hang out for a little bit. So don't everybody hop off. But here we have Julie Schwerin. And hopefully looks like we are good with the connection. A little bit about Julie. Julie Schwerin co-edited the Red Moon Press anthologies Echoes 2, A New Resonance 11, and A New Resonance 12. Her haiku collection, What Was Here, Folded Word Press, was published in 2015. She was the founder facilitator of the Ohio Ku Study Group and established several haiku installations, including the Forest Haiku Walk at the Holmes County Open Air Art Museum in Millersburg, Ohio, from 2015 to current day. The Seasons of Haiku Trail at the Holden Arboretum in Kirkland, Ohio, from 2018 to 19, and Words in Bloom, a year of haiku at the Chicago Botanic Garden from 20 to 21. Schwerin is an associate editor at the Heron's Nest, a member of the Red Moon Anthology editorial team, and member of the organizing committee for Haiku North America 2023. She has resided in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin since 2021. And with that, welcome, Julie.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you to the entire Two Autumns team. This is wonderful. I am coming to you from Wisconsin, so I probably would not have been able to do this other than Zoom. So I am just really grateful that we could do this today. Thank you. I will let you know that I am about 3.5 weeks post-COVID. I feel fine, but I do have a cough that comes up and I don't really trust my voice. So I do have a slide presentation so that if you can't hear me or understand me, hopefully you'll be able to read the haiku on the screen. So I'm going to try sharing my screen with you and see if we can do it that way. Okay, so this was the quote that I found from Marwan Markal, who is a Palestinian poet. And he wrote, "In order for me to write poetry that isn't political, I must listen to the birds. And in order to hear the birds, the warplanes must be silent." And as the warplanes are not silent right now, I have found myself writing a number of more political poems. And the last issue of Frameless Sky was dedicated to the people of Ukraine and the war that was going on there. So I wanted to share some of my Sumanagashi artwork and haiga that were included in that issue. And these are all for that Ukrainian issue. Night shelling, the bubble-wrapped statue nailed into its crate. Fleeing, every face a mirror. What we forgot to take, a last look at home from the train window. Bloodshed, we step into it again, the same river. Each with a name, this field of casualties. Another body for the mass grave. Evening comes. Long after landmines, the war left behind. Behind her eyes, the refugee child returns home. So the rest of the poems, we'll switch gears here, are more of what you're probably used to seeing from me, and they are mostly taken from the Ohio landscape, where I spent the first 50 years of my life, in a very rural part of Ohio. Cloud of no-see-ums, bluegills tease the bobber. Sunrise, learning again to color outside the lines. Sun-soaked chrysalis, the effort no one sees. Winter hike, catching up to the owner of the tracks. The wonderful thing about haiku, of course, is that they can take us exactly to that place and that time where that haiku moment occurred. This is one of those poems for me. I was on a hike, of course, it was snowing, and I saw these little paw prints in the snow with a straight line between them. And I couldn't think of anything that could create these sorts of tracks. I actually thought someone was playing a trick on me, that maybe they had taken their hiking stick and drug it through the snow between these paw prints, until later on my hike, I came across a white weasel, and it was dragging its tail through the snow right between its footprints. And then it all came together. And of course, that weasel does not show up in the poem for any of the readers, but it always takes me exactly to that place, and I know who that owner of the tracks is. Birdsong, editing my dream diary. Birdsong, editing my dream diary. First day of summer, a question mark unpacks its wings. A hole to see through, winter star. Perseids, somewhere a cow calls for her calf. After the fire, a silo and these echoes of lowing. This poem is actually two such moments that were put together for this poem. Of course, growing up in a rural area, I witnessed a number of barn fires during my youth. And one, I remember the sirens in the middle of the night woke my family. We got up, we crowded around our dining room window, all five of us, and looked across the road and just down a short ways, and we could see this barn burning. The next morning, all that was left was the pile of rubble and a silo, which had not been touched by the fire. I was probably 7 years old. When that fire occurred, that silo is still standing today. And of course, I can't see it without remembering that exact moment. The second part of the poem, These Echoes of Lowing, was another neighbor's barn. We went with the whole neighborhood to witness this when it started. And unfortunately, it happened very rapidly, and they were not able to get the animals out of the barn. And to have heard those sounds are something that will haunt me forever, of course. But that's where this poem, After the Fire, a Silo, and These Echoes of Lowing, came from. This is a happier cow poem. Honeysuckle Breeze, a circle of lowing around the newborn calf. I had the opportunity to be the sole human witness to this birth. And shortly after it happened, all of the other cows in the pasture, who were all expecting themselves, that's why they were in this particular enclosure, came and formed a circle around the mother and the newborn, waiting for that little one to start to stir and get to his feet. And as he was, I don't know if it was encouragement or celebration, but there was just a cacophony of lowing around this mother and calf. And I was just thrilled to be able to be there to witness that. One last skate to the pond's end and back, sinking sun. Sumi, a heron's wingtips dip, dip into the water. Barefoot down a gravel lane, ditch lilies. Applause of 1,000 monarch wings, roadside asters. This was one of my first Wisconsin moments. I had always wanted to see the migration of monarchs, and I had thought, boy, I'm going to have to travel maybe to Mexico to witness this someday. And it was my first fall here in Wisconsin. Dan and I were on a walk. We came out into a clearing next to a road, and there were purple asters that were just covered with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of monarch butterflies. So I couldn't ever imagine that I would have experienced that here just as they were starting their journey. Holy Saturday, a morning cloak's shadow over the snow. This was another wonderful Wisconsin moment. My winter here, I had no idea that morning cloaks, which are a type of butterfly, overwintered in their adult state here in Wisconsin in the crevices of tree bark and under the leaf litter on the woods floor. And Dan and I were out for another walk. It was one of those first warm days. There was still snow on the ground, just patches of it here and there. But as we were walking, I saw a shadow cross the snow. I'm like, that looks like a butterfly, but couldn't possibly be. And I look up, and sure enough, there is a morning cloak, and there's another and another and another and another. They had all come out on this warm day and were just surrounding us. So of course, another wonderful haiku moment. I had to write a haiku about it. And the fragment part of this poem came very simply because it was Holy Saturday. It was the day before Easter that this occurred, and that we were witnessing this resurrection of sorts of the morning cloaks. Where the mountain rests, greener pastures. Upstream paddle, a flying heron my cross, and I his. Sunrise over the lake, leaving the privy door open. Another wonderful Wisconsin moment. this side of the pane. Excuse me. The wind, nothing but swaying treetops. This was the poem that I wrote in response to a haiku friend who asked me how I was doing after my mother's death. I wasn't quite sure how to answer that question, but as I sat at my keyboard looking out the window, it was a very blustery November day, and the trees were indeed swaying. And I knew that if I were out there, that it would be a very bracing wind. It would be cold and uncomfortable, maybe even sting. But from where I was sitting inside, looking out, I couldn't feel a thing. And it seemed a very apt metaphor for the numbness of grief that I was feeling at that time. So again, a reader does not see the pain of my mother's death in this poem, but I'm sure they can relate each in their own ways to it. Kite string, a child's heart, letting it all out. A cloud with somewhere to be, autumn morning. Blackbirds seed a watermelon sky, summer's eve. And I'll leave you with just one more. I want to thank Randy and Shirley Brooks of Mayfly for publishing this one. Not exactly an angel, where she sat on the snow-covered bench. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julie. That was wonderful. Well worth the wait for the visual aspect, which really, it added a lot, actually. That was a really nice facet to the whole thing. And your voice sounded great, and it was just an overall delightful reading. Thank you.
No, thank you, everybody, for your help and your patience.
All right. There we go. That was just fantastic. What a treat that was. Thank you to all four of our poets, and thank you to HPNC for putting this whole thing together. It's just been a really enjoyable afternoon right here. So we have some time to visit if people are so inclined. If you know, now if anybody is remaining and has questions for poets or just want to share comments, we have a little bit of time for that. So we'll open that up now if Sue has anything to say.
I wanted to say thank you, Nate. That was wonderful. You did such a nice job, and all the readers were wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It was just fabulous.